Allow me to introduce James Onyoy. And of James Onyoy, over to you. Please, you can present to the listeners.
Is there somebody to Marion?
Thank you for that.
That's a good addition. Thank you. Yes, can somebody allow my video to come on, or it is not allowed?
Let me enable video right now.
Yes, so that people know it's not a robot talking. All right. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President, and also thank you for the very kind introduction I've got from our colleague. Today, we are going to start on a topic which I believe we're just going to do like the beginning of a big topic that we should be talking about going forward. Issues around sustainability are very serious matters. For those who are members of the League of East African Directors, which is the space where directors, come together to discuss pertinent issues, you'll agree with me that this is a very serious matter that is on the table, being discussed by directors at the League of East African Directors. For those who might have followed last year, at the end of last year, as you heard on my CV, I'm also a trustee for the CEO Summit. We launched actually it was launched by Honorable Lumumba, the Sustainability Center for the CEO Summit, which is really the private sector effort, private sector partnership with government and civil society to bring issues of sustainability to the forefront. Sustainability is something really important, as you'll see as we go through this session today. It touches on our own existence, whether we shall continue to exist as a species in the next 100 years or not, whether we are going to, destroy what is keeping us alive. So it's a very serious matter that every board member should be preoccupied with. And not only boards, it is something that I want us all to be involved in, because issues around sustainability concern all of us. And as you'll see in the presentation, it is something that we need to be not only talking about, but also beginning doing something about what we can do in our own capacities in our different spaces. So it's a very, very important topic. And I want to encourage everyone to really pick interest in this. That's why I said, let us talk about it. As a beginning, we're not going to cover much today, but at least it should be like a foundation on which we can then continue this conversation. The first thing I would like to do is, let me stop share this one. I want to start with an exercise. For those who have always attended my talks, I like to be participative. So I want us to, let me see if I can do this. I want to put this in the chat room and see if you can follow this link. Can you follow the link on the chat room and try to post something there? Because the first question for all of us is really, what comes to your mind when you hear about sustainability? That's where I want us to start from. What does sustainability mean to you? Can you please follow the link and post some? Yeah, somebody has already posted. It means continuity. Very good. Thank you. Another person? Post what you think. What does sustainability mean to you? Because this is the topic that we're talking about. It's about longevity. Thank you. I hope you are you seeing this screen? Let me try to share. Okay. I'll try to share the screen and see. Okay, you can see what is on the screen. Yes, so if I can just read a few of them. The first one said it is continuity. Somebody is saying it is ensuring the future. Sounds like securing the future. Responsibility. Keeping up with the same. Longer, continuous, assuring the future, survive, and trusting the future. Thank you. Adapt. Somebody has put in NRM. Maybe that's securing the future, I don't know. Somebody is saying impact or generations. Let me see them as lists so that's easier to read. Responsible actions for the future. Thank you. Durability. Keeping especially good things going and multiplying for a long time for you and others around you. Thank you very much. Continuous growth and being able to adapt. Growth, longevity. That the project or business will survive longer than the founder. Thank you. Continuity, I think that's the main thing here. Keeping especially good things going and multiplying for a long time. Oh, I think I'm reading again. Keeping up with the same.
I'll be free after an hour.
Making something last for generations with responsibility. That's good. NRM, we shall ask the person to explain. Not sure. Being able to maintain and expand. Sharing the future we read. Being able to continue in the quality and impact. Thank you for your contribution. What can keep going when you are gone? Taking care of, I can see somebody bringing the 3 Ps, the planet, the people, and the profit. Thank you very much. That's good. Ensuring the future generation thrives at a better level than what is there now. Ability to be continuous. Sustainability is doing it well over and over again. Good. Continuous improvement. Yeah, I think we've got an idea, a very good idea, all of us, of what sustainability is. Thank you very much for those posts. So I'll go back now. I think we have all got a glimpse of what sustainability means to all of us. And thank you for those contributions. So really, let me see if I can go back to my, yes, my presentation there. Yeah, thank you very much for your various contributions. So when we talk about sustainability, we're really talking about these 3 main areas. We're talking about environment, what we are doing about the environment to make sure we protect the environment, if anything, make it to thrive, so that we are all sure of our future. We're talking about social issues. We're talking about governance. So basically, we're talking about ESG, environment, social, and governance aspects of what you should be concerned about as leaders, as directors, as managers, as people who have been entrusted with this planet where we are. So when you talk about the environment, I think we should all be cognizant of the fact that climate change is no longer just a debate. It's no longer just a theory. It's real. And we're beginning to see the impacts of climate change on what we do. Where I come from in Bukedia, it's no longer easy to predict the weather. You don't know when it's going to rain. A lot of things are changing. And in some countries, it is even worse, especially some islands in the big oceans. The global warming water is rising and threatening the entire existence of the people in those islands. So a lot of things are happening which are really a result of the destruction that we are making on the environment. When we talk about environment, we should be talking about biodiversity loss. We are living in a time when some of the animals, for example, or even plants have become extinct. Our children, the children of our children are not going to see certain species which used to exist. And unfortunately, we are the ones who are causing that, people who are living here at the now. Deforestation. Where I come from, everywhere I used to have forest cover. People have cut down trees, they are making charcoal, and this charcoal is destroying, I mean, this business, this new business of charcoal is destroying our environment. And that's already affected the climate. So these are serious issues. Issues around pollution. Are you discussing them in your organizations? The carbon dioxide emissions into you can see that picture, carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere. What are we doing about it? What are we doing about waste management? We're in a country where even when you are driving behind someone, you see somebody throwing a mineral water bottle on the road, on tarmac. That's the highest level of indiscipline. How do you manage your waste? And then these bottles are thrown in our rivers, in our lakes. It's extremely irresponsible. And we are the people doing this. So what can we do about it? What is your organization doing about this? Resource use. How are you using our resources? I remember one time I was in Cape Town, and everywhere you'd see notices on how you should use water wisely. In fact, I saw notices even saying you couldn't use water on certain days, for example, to water your garden. But for us here, somebody can put a water tap and leave it running. Hazardous materials. You saw from in the introduction, I'm a board member of ESCOM Uganda Limited. Of course, we handed over the dams, but we're still around to make sure we close out successfully. One of the things we're preoccupied with was how do you make sure those units that are generating power, because you through the engineering process, you're using oils. How do you make sure those oils do not spill into the river and pollute the water? What's your organization doing about hazardous materials? Are you just disposing of things anyhow? We've seen some factories releasing waste into the water, into the rivers. That's really being irresponsible. If you're a director of a company, those are the things you should be preoccupied with. You shouldn't be part of people making decisions and destroying the environment. On social issues, what are you doing about health and safety? In fact, at ESCOM, we used even to count how many days we have gone without any incident of an accident. Either somebody sliding and getting an accident during duty. What health and safety measures have you put into your workplace? How are you making sure your customers are safe? Are you following labor standards? Those are social issues. Are these issues you are discussing in your board? Are these issues you are discussing in your organization? And you don't have to be a board member. Even as somebody working for an organization, you should be asking yourself, are we following the labor standards? Or are we not doing the right things? Issues around equality, diversity, and inclusion. I remember very well, Rotary has put a lot of focus on this. I think in the last year, we had a whole series of activities around equality, diversity, and inclusion. Are your systems inclusive? Do they allow, for example, people who are disabled to participate in your organization? The other day I was seeing Stanbic Bank. They have a deliberate effort to help people who are disabled to serve in the bank. Are you making those kind of decisions? If you are, then you're on the right part of history as people who are implementing ESG in the right manner. What are your sales practices like? Are you just there to sell your product regardless of what impact it will have on the society, on the communities around you? How are you engaging your community? Is your community involved in your activities? Are your activities supporting your communities? Or are you just minting profit, minting money out of the community and not caring about what is happening to the community? These days we talk about shared value. Are there activities that your organization is doing that help the community, but in the same way, in a symbiotic way? You are benefiting from the community, but the community is also benefiting in what you're doing. Those are the kind of questions you should be asking yourselves. So we should all be involved in this kind of conversations. When we talk about governance, what is your organization? What are you doing about anti-bribery and corruption? We have just seen cases where people say they just found iron sheets in their compound. Is that right? If we're talking about sustainability, we should be talking about good governance, good corporate governance. Your organization should have a board. You can give it a different name. Sometimes you can call it a trustee, but there should be a governing body. Now, what's the board composition? Does it embrace diversity, for example? Are there women on your board? Are there youth on your board? Because there are things these days, maybe at my age and other people, you may not be able to understand some of these things, especially around social media. Do you have some people who can at least have an understanding of that? And in terms of also not just maybe the background in terms of whether somebody is a lady or the youth, or bringing that diversity, age, and so forth. Also in terms of thinking, in terms of capacity, skills, expertise. Do you have somebody on your board who's conversant about issues around ESG, about sustainability? Do you have somebody who's conversant about issues around technology, cybersecurity, and so forth? What is the composition of your board? Executive pay also is an issue around governance. We have seen companies where the CEO wants to get a bonus even when you've made a loss. What kind of conversations are happening in your organization? I want us to be asking ourselves these questions. Tax. How tax compliant is your organization? Are you giving to Caesar what belongs to Caesar? Because at the end of the day, we should all be good corporate governance, good corporate citizens. So, are you tax compliant? What are you doing about data protection? Those are the kind of issues you should be considering in your board. And if not in the board, in your workplace. Because every one of us has a role to play in this whole process of sustainability or ESG. Moderator, I will want you to warn me 5 minutes before the end so that I can regulate my speed. So let's look at what connects ESG issues. What brings them to the forefront of discussions, either in the boardroom or in our workplaces or wherever we are. One of them is shareholder expectations of long-term stewardships. Shareholders no longer expect you to make a profit this year only. It's good to make a profit, and you should. But what are your perspectives about long-term? What are you planning to do? What is your vision about what your company should be doing in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years? That's what will bring in issues around sustainability. You remember members suggested that it's about longevity. I like the advert which Standard Chartered used to put, that we are here for the long haul. You are assuring your people, you are assuring your customers, assuring the public that you are not here for 2 days. You are here, you are going to be with them, you are going to serve them in the long haul. There's also increasing focus on value creation through sustainable business models. We expect your business model to be a sustainable model, taking the country, taking the organization into the future, and serving the communities that you work with, and considering impacts outside the organization. What is the impact of what you do on the environment?
Doctor, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will speed up. So, as I said, this is just to tickle our minds about sustainability. Who are the stakeholders that you should put into perspective? The investors, for example, are now interested in what does your organization represent? Are you a careless person destroying the environment? Your workforce is getting interested in what you do, especially the youth. They now want to identify with organizations which have the right value, which have the right perspectives in terms of the impact they have on society and community. Your suppliers and customers too have the same concerns. Governments are also becoming increasingly interested in what we do as businesses. The regulators. I serve in highly regulated organizations like ESCOM, highly regulated by Electricity Regulatory Authority, UAP, where I sit in the audit committee, highly regulated by Insurance Regulatory Authority, Citibank, highly regulated by, the Bank of Uganda. So what does the regulator want you to do? In fact, Central Bank is coming up with very detailed guidelines on what they expect banks to do, or financial institutions, and the community generally. So, for you getting started on this business, you need to look at your landscape. What are the significant issues in your sector? What is the legislation like? The regulations, government policy, competition, the stakeholders, what are they saying about this? And then understand your own business. How is sustainability aligned with your corporate strategy? How are you looking at these things in terms of risk appetites and so forth? You need to understand your organization, of course, and your organization's ESG goals and priorities. You need to look at the frameworks that you need to be using for this process. You need to upskill your staff and your employees to understand these processes of sustainability. You need to do risk assessments, setting priorities. What data do you need to collect for you to play well in this space of sustainability? So those are the kind of things that you need to be asking yourself. And of course, there are several frameworks that are now being developed, which will help us in this whole process. You'll see that already from the accounting profession, there's a lot of work that is being done There's now what we call the Global Reporting Initiative, coming up with standards on how we should report on ESG. Sustainability accounting standards, these are being put into place in the next 2 to 3 years. Task Force on Climate-related Financial Disclosures is also there. The International Sustainability Standards Board is in the works. A lot of standards are being put in place, and a lot of guidance will be available to organizations on how you can report on this.
You have one second.
And that 1 second is enough for me, Mr. President, to say thank you very much for lending me your ears and for being a good audience. And I hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amazing past Assistant Governor for that discourse on sustainability. As I welcome Anthony to take us through the Q&A, the question that was running in my mind is, where is the place for the Rotarian? And you answered those questions. You talked about what we can do in our communities, conserving energy, water, and so on. You talked about our community and how we can engage in community projects as Rotarians. Tree planting is something that we've been doing for ages. What about cleanup campaigns? That's something that some Rotary clubs have done. You know, what about this awareness, you know, which you have done, ably done? I mean, there are a couple of other areas, policy changes, the partnership we have with various organizations. And you ourselves as individual Rotarians, what can we do as individual Rotarians to support, promote, and encourage sustainability practices, sustainable practices? Thank you very much. I welcome Rotarian Anthony Ogwal. Please lead us in the Q&A.
Thank you, amazing President. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, you are.
Fellow Rotarians, guests, Rotaractors and friends of Rotary on call for this question and answer session. You may shoot your question or comment on the comment section on the chat, or you may raise your hand and you'll be selected to air out your views or comments or question, or you may simply unmute your mic and do it the Chichiga way, as Rotarian Chitakule famously says, and we get the conversation going. Thank you.
Frederick has his hand raised. CMP Frederick.
My microphone to start in the Chichiga way. I wanted to ask Rotarian James, and thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Do you think in this aspect of ESG, we have the aspect of management of public resources, which is normally entrusted to the politicians? Do you think this is about the time to ask ourselves whether as a political movement or as a political class, we should also be thinking about sustainability there in terms of management of those resources? I'm actually the one who responded the answer NRM to ask ourselves, are we sustainable? Are we managing resources in a sustainable way? And these are the people that have been given the authority to do this. Do you think there's a place for the Rotarian to educate the masses about sustainability in that manner?
We can take two more. I can see Frederick and CP Kate, please submit.
Thank you very much, amazing President, and thank you very much, Dr. James Onyoin. My question is around, how do you go about sustainability where there are competing priorities, especially when by the people in decision-making positions, and they have competing priorities? For example, if it is a company, the priority, for example, of the directors is always profits, and all that over environment and human capital, like you have just said, we have systems that are competing against sustainability. How do you go about that? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony, could also raise a
Speak it.
question?
Oh, okay. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Innocent here speaking. Mine is a bit related to the earlier question on competing priorities, but particularly in line with the poverty situation in our country. Because most of these concepts, of course, as most of all the concepts come from the developed world, and the competing priorities here bring it closer to the local person. So, for example, if we are talking of disposal of plastics and boveras, I'm sure most of us, when we are driving, we come across situations where someone has dumped rubbish in the road, and that is the less risky. Sometimes they put it in gardens and everywhere, and these people are doing it not necessarily because they want. Of course, there's a little bit of indiscipline, but also they can't afford garbage disposal. So, and the same also applies to the industries, to the factories, where people are trying to maximize and to spend the least amount of money that they can as they carry their business. How do you see that working out in an economic setup like ours? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just read a question from Rotarian Mary Vaji, and then Dr. James, you may respond to the rest of the questions. She says, thank you, PhD Dr. James. This is extremely important, an important matter which we need to be looking at the moment. It is better late than never. We have to plan for the world we are going to live for our children. Kindly, what would you suggest is the way forward to change the mindset of the population at large, bearing in mind there are competitive priorities? Thank you. Dr. James, you may respond to the question so far, and then we will proceed and take more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, so members, issues around sustainability is about life and death. That's what we need to know, first of all. It's about life and death. And thank you, PhD Frederick Chibedi. In fact, when I saw NRM, I suspected you should be the one who put this one. But anyway, issues around sustainability, I think the people in positions of authority, especially the political space, need to know that we as voters, we entrust them to go into those positions so that they can make decisions that are in the best interest of the voters, in the best interest of the citizens. So, and I'm quite sure our laws also really point to the direction that once you hold a public office, the kind of decisions you make should be for the benefit of the public. And that's what we expect of them. And it's not too much to expect from our leaders to really be making decisions which will ensure that the country, the resources of this country, the people of this country are not endangered going into the future. So in that vein, of course, where even politicians or public officers have not made the right decisions, you have seen some of them facing the police and the courts and going to jail and all that. That's really what we expect. If you don't do something that we expect to be right, then the law should be able to catch up with you. But it shouldn't get to that. As a leader, as a politician, you should always know that whatever decision you make should be in the best interest of the citizens. So for me, I would leave it at that. I just want to call on the moral fiber within our leaders to be able to make the right decisions. About competing priorities, yes, you are right, but that's why I said it's life and death. So the question usually is, do you want to eat everything that you have today and have nothing tomorrow? Those are the questions we're dealing with when you're talking about sustainability. If you talk about the environment, for example, right now, we are working hard to make sure we get the oil out of the ground in areas in the western part of the country where the oil projects are. But the most important thing is, which I think I must really commend the government and the people who have played in that space. You'll see that every effort is being made to make sure that whatever drilling is being done, whatever extraction of oil is being done, it does not have a disastrous effect on the environment. And if you look at the reports so far that have come out, the impact assessment reports and so on, so far everything is going according to plan. In fact, if you look at, for example, even the way the oil pipeline is going to be hit, they are going to use renewable energy, solar energy, and things like that, so that you are not causing more harm to the environment. Some of the byproducts, like what they call LPG, which is used for gas from the oil industry, is going to help when it comes to our houses, and then we're able to use gas to cook, maybe to become cheaper to all of us. And then we desist from cutting down the trees. So that's the kind of thing. You can have a priority. You want to get the oil out of the ground, but you must take measures to make sure that as you get it off the ground, you do not destroy the environment. You should put measures in place to safeguard the environment. So, Past President Takule, it's about, it's okay for you to get out the oil, for example, but you won't get the oil and then have it damage the environment tomorrow in the whole country. No, you should do it in such a way that, and of course, normally it is slightly more expensive putting all those safety measures into place, but you have to do it because you want to protect. Some of these places even have national parks. You want to protect those animals so that they have an environment, and we continue to have tourism as well. So you have to make sure that as you harvest this, you are also not damaging the environment for future generations and for yourself. So really, the competing priorities, you have to make sure whatever you do not destroy the environment. Take, for example, if you are fishing in Lake Victoria, and you have to be careful how you do the fishing. The methods that are being used, are they killing the fish that remain behind as you harvest some of them? Or are you using methods which will allow the fish to continue multiplying so that you have something to harvest next 10 years, 8 years? Not to say such and such a fish has already got depleted because of your actions, which you are not responsible. So that's what we are talking about. It is okay for us to get something out of our resources, but we should get it out in such a way that those resources are still preserved for the future generations. About poverty, I think the issue about disposal of plastics is not really, it's not poverty in terms of lacking money. It is poverty of the mind, having the wrong mindset. Because I can assure you, one time I was listening to a presenter, and she told me that in her home, she has set up buckets and taught her children, if something is a plastic, put it on this basket. If it is something which is like pepper or cabbage and things like that, put them in a different baskets. And then carry that basket of plastics and hand it over to sites which can take hold of disposing that kind of material. And I'm sure KCCA provides us with areas where you can drop some of these things. So it just takes you to bring back those plastics and put them where they can be disposed of properly, but not just throw them everywhere in the farm. And it's extreme, as somebody said in this forum, it's extremely dangerous to do this in the farm. Now, so the garbage disposal is really our responsibility, and we can start from our homes, how we actually package these materials and take them to the right place. And I'm sure all of us can really do that if we commit to it. Mindset change. This is why we're having these sessions. And personally, I think I want to devote most of my time in this particular effort to make sure we talk about how do we protect our environment? How do we be responsible in terms of to our societies, in our organizations? How do we make sure we have the right governance in our organizations? This is what I'm going to be devoting most of my time in. And I hope that there will be many ambassadors here who can go out there as Rotarians. Let's have projects which help people to understand that we must protect the environment. One of our focus areas is environment, for example. Let's have programs around that. Let's have programs which encourage people to have the right governance structures, starting with ourselves as Rotary clubs. Let's be properly governed. Let our boards be functional and make the right decisions. So mindset change is a big thing, but I think it's something we can all put our hands together. I'm sure if we do that, we'll be able to get some results, because change starts with me, it starts with you. And that's where we can start. Do whatever you can within your environment, within your family, within your Rotary club, and let us make sure we make people understand this thing, because it will really be bad for us to be a generation that destroyed the planet. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nyoin, you have succeeded in hacking time. I don't know how we end at 2 minutes past 8. Rotarians, I'd request our amazing guest speaker to give us an extra few minutes into the Chimeza. For now, I would kindly propose that let us have our meeting closed so that we can move into the Chimeza session. We shall share the stats through our various social media fora for your information. For now, I would request amazing Justice Mugabo to take over and guide us in the final toast. Thank you. Maybe before the final toast, I think it's worth giving a vote of thanks. Amazing James Onyoin. Let's have a vote of thanks, then we move into the final toast.
Thank you, President. Rotarian Dorothy will do that very well. Thank you.
Good morning, Rotarians on call. Thank you, amazing President, and thank you, our leader, Justice Mugabu. I'm honored to pass a vote of thanks to our PhD, Dr. James Onyoin, for the wonderful presentation. Thank you for the wealth of knowledge you've given us on governance, maintaining standards in what we do, ethics and conduct. We can't thank you anymore for the information you've given us. I believe with the words we've received from you, we are going to start the journey of change of our mindsets in the things that we do. And I believe it will become part of our DNA. I thank you, and I thank everyone who is in attendance. Thank you.
Director Adrian.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Rotarian Emmy. Let me rush through the statistics. We've been blessed with 42 Rotary clubs this morning. I won't treat them because of time. I've ably stated them in the chat. Then we've been blessed with 4 Rotaract clubs. Then we had 1 guest on call. We had a total of 151 attendees and 17 club members. Thank you very much.
Can we have the final toast?
Rotarian Apa.
Rotarian Apa may not be on call. Rotarian William probably is with us. Give us the final toast.
Yes, yes, AP, amazing President, I'm around. Thank you so much. May I request everybody to stand, and we have our final toast for that day. For the wonderful insight and presentation I've had from my good friend, my OB, PhD, Dr. James Onyoin, for that wonderful presentation and insight into sustainability, which is actually the catchword these days. Let us all toast to Rotary International.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary Thank you, President.
Rotary the world over.
Amazing. Thank you so much, our amazing Rotarians, amazing presidents, visionary Rotarians, and guests. Thank you for coming this morning. Our meeting is over. I welcome you to stay around for a few minutes into the Chimeza session for anything that you would need clarified. Our guest speaker, I'm sure, will offer us a few more minutes before he rushes for his classification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. I want to start. Is it sustainable for only 17 daybreakers to attend the fellowship? I submit, Chair.
I don't know whether that is for our guest speaker.
Yes.
Hajat, it is not sustainable at all, and I'm sure we should all call whoever was not in the session today. We have been used to 98% attendance, 99% attendance. So I think it is something that we have to work on. Thank you, Hajat.
Good morning, President.
Good morning.
And all members on call. Is it sustainable for a club president to induct members into the club and they remain in file and they do not update into the RI system?
It is not sustainable. Definitely not sustainable. And following your call, we have our membership updated as of mid last month. No, actually end of this month. We are up to date.
And let me hope clubs will not miss that award due to not posting and making sustainable goals in Rotary Club Central, and then they end up complaining. Kindly take note, update.
We are fully updated.
It sounds like a club assembly.
Looks like a club assembly. I agree with you.
CP, your hand is up. Please shoot.
Thank you, President.
PhD, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I also another issue as far as the sustainability of our cultures and the interference from the Western world. I just wanted you to discuss that. But not now, not now.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me go and defend my classification, President.
Thank you, Hajat. Thank you. Have a great day.
Amazing. CP Sam,
Thank
please
you.
go us.
President, I just needed to pick PhD James Onyoin's mind on the concern of sustainability and its relationship with leadership and governance, but also tailored together with one of the conversations he talked about, which is the mindset change. We certainly have overheard this a million times of Uganda being one of the most entrepreneurial countries, but same businesses not seeing their second birthday. And you realize that often comes because we are at a survival at a survival stage, or we are a firefighting, economy that yet we look to have plans on paper, we have policies on paper, but somehow the way we do things comes off in a firefighting nature. Now, whereas the conversation about mindset change is not a hard conversation that is tangible, it slowly gets cultured into people's mind that then, because of this leadership and governance structure of how it reacts to things, so do citizens become reactionary or firefighting citizens. So you tend to have a generation of us young people, even when we get into our workspace, have no sustainability conversation on how we are going to grow in our workplaces or leadership. A young man gets into office today and certainly wants to live a life James Onyoin has lived, who has been in the same workspace for the last 40 years. And so what does that inform this young man's mind to do? Then it means he has to find all the wrong shortcuts for him to be able to attain what should have been attained when he has sustainably been at the job for a certain period of time. And that is also mirrored again in the lifestyles of us as Ugandans, but even also our leaders. You have leaders living extremely large in a very developing country. You have leaders living extremely large in an economy where they are saying we cannot, take data anymore. I mean, for me, this conversation about mindset change, I find it critical to speak into leadership and governance. I'm not even looking at the political mirror right now of the leaders in that stature. I'm looking at every one of us as an individual being a leader for themselves. To sit down and say, Sam, what's your vision for 2030 as an individual, as Sam? As AP Edward, what's your vision for 2030? Because collectively, if all of us then seem to know where we are going, then it becomes easy to replicate that into a system that then reflects of the government and its people. But I feel like even if we keep talking about government in terms of leadership, in terms of the government in power, but then that does not reflect into us as individuals. I mean, we've talked about even simple things like, for example, relationships. A young couple is getting married today, and you say, where do you want to see your marriage or your family in the next 3 years? And they certainly don't know it. Now, it means that sustainability of even that relationship is compromised. And when things are falling apart, we rush to blame the government, yet initially, by virtue of the little English I know, then the government is a representative of the people. And so it means us as people, we've failed on our part, but want to blame a certain mirror up at the top. So what is your view about this conversation about mindset change, but focusing on individual citizens? Because together we achieve more.
Yes, TP Sam, I can't agree more. You have really put it very right. Like I said earlier, this sustainability conversation should start with me and you as individuals. It should start with us in our homes. What are you doing in terms of sustainability? Are you a dictator in your home? When you reach home, do children go to hide? Or do you encourage conversations on matters that affect the family? Do you sit down and say, what are the goals that we should pursue as a family? It should start at that level of individual. And even when it comes to mindset change, it is the mind of the individual that we need to change. And I'm happy to inform you that Jim Roberts Consulting, in partnership with a company called Coach Coage of India, we all know Ruchira, we are now bringing into this market very powerful programs about mindset change from a coaching perspective. How do you take somebody through a leadership development program which can help them shift in the way they look at things? You talked about, we put very nice things on paper. I'm told some countries even just come and take our plans, our strategies, our policies, and implement. And for us, all we have is a piece of paper with something written on it. The other people have real impact out of what we had written. So what causes that? It's because of the lack of will to implement. So how do you deal with the will and intentionality of individuals? We have very detailed programs around that. How do you train your will to be able to achieve what you set out to do? So you can talk to, reach out to me. I can introduce you to some of those programs. And of course, those programs, we are doing them together with the League of East African Directors, with the CEO Summit, and other like-minded organizations which are interested in making sure we pass this message. Maybe the other announcement I will make is that Jim Roberts has what we call the Jim Roberts Advisory Series, and we'll soon be launching what we call the Audit Committee Perspectives. We want to bring conversations to boardrooms, especially the audit committees, to start talking about these things in a much more focused and serious way. And so I'll be reaching out to you for those who are interested. Already we've been running a lot of programs under sustainability with the League of East African Directors. This will be just deepening what we are doing through collaborations between League of East African Directors, CEO Summit, HLB Jim Roberts, and Coach Coage. So these programs are available, but what I want to say is it starts with me, like Sama said, starts with you. And let's start from our celebs and the people that we influence around us. Even these leaders, sometimes we really, cry foul, but we are the problem because we are the ones who brought these people and put them in positions when you know very well this person is not the right person, doesn't have the right integrity. So who's the problem? It is you who's voting the person. Sometimes we're even worse. We talk about these things, we don't go to vote. So you leave the guys in the streets who can be enticed with 1,000 shillings to vote for your leaders. And what do you get? You get people who don't know anything about sustainability, anything about doing things for the best interest of the citizen. So the problem actually starts with us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is Epi Moses from Kasangati.
Yes, Epi Moses. Good morning.
Yes, I want to thank you so much, Dr. James, for the talk. It is really enriching. I have a question about NGOs who are being established. Many organizations, they start, and most of the CEOs, they have a strong attachment with the funders. And these funders, they give people that they know. We have seen organizations started, and when the funders die or leave the organization, that's the end of the organization in many occasions. And some organizations have started very good work in different communities. And when the organization leaves the community, it goes back to even worse to the first state of how that. So there's no sustainability. You have seen organizations working in different districts, and you see vehicles, among others, children go to school, and many groups of women, children, among others, and we come up with reports that this is where we are, and this is the kind of work we have done. And even Rotary, we working in different communities, and when we leave that community, sometimes it goes back to the first state, even if we have what you call RCC, but sometimes when there's no one who is making a follow-up on that, they dies off. How should we go about that? And if there is anyone who is maybe planning to start an organization, but after having that kind of scenario, when you don't see the sustainability of what you are going to start, how do we go about that? Because it really bothers me a lot, and we need really guidance on that. So with your experience, I believe that you have seen this, but how do we go about this? I submit.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, I think you really asked a very important question, and it's a challenge to us leaders. When you set up an organization, you see this last item of governance. What kind of governance systems have you put in place? You should put systems in place, governance systems, which ensure that even if you are not there, the organization will continue into perpetuity. The problem sometimes with most of us, the leader who set up the organization and the organization are like the same thing. And without him, the organization cannot stand. So I think the biggest test comes in terms of governance structures. Do you really have proper governance structures? Do you have independent director, non-executive directors? Do you have people who can give you ideas on how to run this organization without being biased or without fearing that I may be fired? Because if they are your staff, they will fear that you might fire them. So do you have those governance structures in place? If you have, your organization can run without you, because that structure will be able to run the organization. So to me, it's very important to have governance structures, even if you are the founder of the organization. At HLB Jim Roberts, for example, I'm one of the founding partners. But just last month, we have admitted 2 new partners, whom we know, these are now a younger generation. When we step out, they will be able to take the organization into the future. And they have grown up in the organization. They understand our values. They understand our vision. Then the other most important thing is, when you're setting up this organization, I like what Simon Sinek normally says, start with the why. Is the cause for which you are setting up that organization, the reason for which you are setting that organization? Is it something that will inspire people to work for it? Is it something that will inspire people to fund it? Is it something that will inspire people to be identified with it? If it is, that organization will survive even after you've gone. But if you've just set it up, it's not clear why you set it up. Everything you do should be linking to why you exist. Look at Rotary, for example. Rotary was set up over 100 years ago, Paul Harris and the team. But because of the vision they had, the why of Rotary, why are we Rotarians? The reason we do what we do as Rotarians has remained to be relevant. If that why of the organization remains relevant, that organization will have a future. It doesn't matter whether it was set up by James, whether by Samuel or by who, so long as the reason why that organization was set up was something that people would want to identify with. Take people like Nelson Mandela. He was in jail for about 27 years, but he had a genuine reason why he was in prison. And he said, I'm not going to denounce what I'm doing because I know I want to save my people from the pangs of apartheid. That was a very noble cause. And some people even fought and died for that cause because they came to really follow it and say, this is something I must do. So the reason, the why of your organization is very important. And then the governance structures. What kind of structures do you have in place? What's the succession planning that you have? Like I've told you, we've just admitted 2 partners, another one in the pipeline. So I know very well once I get out, this organization will run into the future. That's what you should be doing. And most importantly, what is the why of your organization? Before you talk about how and the what you are doing. So it's very important. So some of these NGOs, somebody just has a friend in Netherlands, they say, we'll give you money, start this, but you've not thought through and really synchronized, why are you setting this organization? And does it touch what is most important to your community? What's the most important to the people that are going to support you as funders? If funders believe that what you are doing is so important, if they identify with that cause, they will fund you. It doesn't matter whether one funder has died, another funder will give you money. And that's how it should work. And of course, for Rotary, I think, like I've said, I think the reason why we exist, the issues that we're addressing in society, being people of action, is what is making us sustainable for over 100 years. We are relevant to the societies that we serve. And that's something that we should really keep up. So make sure your organization addresses the why, according to Simon Sinek. Thank you. Moderator, I think the questions are over, so we can close at 8:30.
Sure, Dr. James.
Yes, if there are any questions, we will, as I said, we are going to be running a series of conversations around this. And we hope that many people will join us in this process. And in any case, it's going to become, like I told you, the standards, especially for reporting, are coming. It's going to be compulsory to do some of these things. So the earlier you adapt, the better.
Interesting.
So, Mr. President, thank you. I think it has been a very good to interact with you. It's good to have still over 41 people on the call at this point after 30 minutes. That means this is something that really is in the hearts of the people. But between me and you, each of us has to play our role as individuals, as families, as Rotary clubs, as society, or even in our companies. Let's do something which is within our means, and we can change the world one person at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, PhD James members. I think that has been it for today. I wish you all a fruitful day.
Thank you very much. And bye-bye, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our colleagues about this very, very important topic. Thank you. Okay, Mr. President, I beg to leave now.